NBA, CBA nonsense.
And I thought it's been a really big part of the CBA negotiations is rewarding and acknowledging why we're here, and it's because of the players.
It's not because, stop saying players. Will y'all say her name? It's because of Caitlin Clark.
What has been your biggest priority when looking at the new CBA, looking at everything that's been negotiated? What's your biggest priority?
Stop right there. Revenue share. That's the phrase that's become the rallying cry for WNBA players in these CBA negotiations. And Kia Nurse just laid it out like it's the most obvious thing in the world. But here's what makes this fascinating, and frankly infuriating to a lot of people watching this unfold. The WNBA owners already leaked their offer. $800,000 max contracts, jumping to $1.3 million, scaling up to $2.4 million per year within 4 years. Average salaries pushing close to $600,000, and the players' union called that a slap in the face. So when Kia Nurse sits there talking about revenue share like it's just the natural next step, like the league is flush with cash just waiting to be distributed, we need to pump the brakes and ask some very direct questions. Because the disconnect between what players think they deserve and what the actual business reality looks like. That gap is wider than the Grand Canyon right now.
There's been such great steps that next natural progression is that revenue share.
Bruh, what are you talking about revenue share for? You out here selling tickets? What y'all like? All of y'all, my thing is this, all y'all are really just trying to eat off the back and the clout of Caitlin Clark. That's the truth of the matter. The WNBA owners, like we saw, the WNBA owners called y'all out to the point where they went and leaked things they put in their CBA offer.
Player safety, better housing, security on the road, charter flights, maternity rights. She's rattling off this list like these are victories the players fought for and won. And to be fair, those are legitimate improvements that the previous CBA delivered. But here's the part that gets conveniently left out of this narrative every single time a player does one of these interviews. The owners already gave them all of that. The WNBA has been operating at a loss for years. Not a small loss, a massive one. And the owners kept writing checks to improve player conditions anyway. They upgraded travel, they enhanced security after the Caitlin Clark effect brought bigger crowds and more intense fan interactions. They expanded maternity benefits beyond what most American companies offer. The league has been bending over backwards to professionalize the player experience even while hemorrhaging money. So when Kia Nurse frames this as we fought for these things and now we deserve the next step, she's rewriting history. The owners volunteered those improvements. They didn't have to. The league wasn't profitable enough to justify any of it from a pure business standpoint. They did it anyway because they believed in growing the product, and now the ask is revenue share on a league that doesn't generate net revenue. The math isn't mathing.
That's just the truth of the matter. Come on, Kia Nurse.
That really makes a stance that like you are valued for the work that you put in, and that's what we're going after.
Yeah, it's been, of course, something that we've been keeping an eye on here on this show. And all we've said is, look, we're just cheering for everybody to feel like they win. We want the players to feel like they get what they deserve. We want the league to feel like it's in a position where it can succeed financially and on the court for years and years to come. You did mention in a couple answers ago.
But the thing is, the owners already came out and said, doing what you guys want them to do, they will lose $700 million. So how's that a benefit to the league at all? That doesn't benefit the league and the owners at all. Y'all just want what y'all want and y'all don't care.
And there it is. The fundamental problem with this entire negotiation summed up in one soundbite. The owners came out publicly. And this is rare, by the way, for ownership groups to break from behind closed doors negotiations. But they felt compelled to release actual numbers. They said if we give the players what they're demanding in terms of revenue share and salary increases, the league will lose $700 million over the life of this CBA. $700 million. That's not a sustainable business model. That's not even a business at that point. That's a charity operation funded by NBA team owners who happen to also own WNBA franchises. And the players' response to that bombshell revelation, essentially not our problem. The attitude seems to be that the owners are rich, they can afford it, and the players deserve to be paid regardless of whether the revenue exists to support those salaries. But here's the reality check that nobody in the players' union seems willing to accept. Those owners didn't get rich by running businesses that lose $700 million. At some point, even the most committed ownership group looks at that projection and says, why are we doing this? And that's when franchises fold. That's when leagues contract. That's when the whole thing falls apart.
On a pause because there's no deal done. And let's take a listen to what she had to say about the state of WNBA free agency, her being a free agent, what they're dealing with.
Yeah, if you have questions, well, get in line. When you look at free agency, I feel like there's two different schools of thought. You can look at it as freedom, that you have the choice to go anywhere where, opportunities might arise. But like you mentioned, there's also that level of insecurity that you don't know where you're going to be living next year. You don't know what your contract looks like next year. Both of those things, I think, are incredibly valid. Kind of how are you looking at it?
Well, I think you have to start to understand that you have to get really comfortable with uncertainty, especially.
Now listen to how she frames free agency. Two schools of thought, IDES freedom versus insecurity. And she's positioning herself as someone who's learned to embrace the uncertainty, focusing on what she can control. On the surface, that sounds mature and professional. But dig one layer deeper, and you realize what she's actually describing is a fundamental feature of professional sports that exists in every league. NBA players deal with free agency uncertainty. NFL players have even less security with non-guaranteed contracts. MLB players navigate arbitration and free agency. This isn't unique to the WNBA. This is how professional sports work. You perform, you get paid. You don't perform, you get replaced. The market determines your value. And yes, that creates uncertainty, but it also creates opportunity for players who outperform their contracts. The difference is that players in other leagues don't frame this basic reality of professional sports as some kind of hardship that needs to be negotiated away. They understand that uncertainty is part of the deal. You want the freedom to switch teams and chase bigger contracts. Then you accept the risk that comes with that freedom. You can't have it both ways. Guaranteed security and unlimited free agency flexibility.
In the world of professional sports, because there's just so many things that happen along the course of a season or an off season that you're not necessarily always sure about how things are going to turn out. And for me, I've just been focusing on the things that I can control. And the off season is the place that I get to control pretty much everything about what I do. And so I've spent the last 3 or 4 years at home doing Raptors broadcasts on TSN in Canada. And it's allowed me to have these off seasons where I can focus on the things I want to focus on the court. I can focus on the things I want to focus on off the court as well. And then in the strength and conditioning realm, and be able to come to places like Nashville and play in Athletes Unlimited, because my first couple seasons, off seasons where I was at home, the one thing I felt like I was missing was that 5-on-5 kind of live action and being able to make those reads. And so being able to come to a place like Nashville and play in this Athletes Unlimited League is just such a joy for me. It was such a great time last year that I was like, yeah, sign me back up. I'll be back.
Athletes Unlimited, TSN broadcasts, Raptors color commentary. She's built herself a nice off-season portfolio, and good for her, honestly. That's smart business. She's leveraging her basketball expertise into media opportunities and staying sharp with competitive 5-on-5 during the winter months. That's exactly what professional athletes should be doing in the off-season. But here's where this gets interesting. In the context of the CBA negotiations, Kaya Nurse has options. She's not solely dependent on her WNBA salary. She's got broadcasting income. She's got Athletes Unlimited. She's diversified her revenue streams. That puts her in a completely different financial position than a rookie making league minimum, or a veteran role player who doesn't have those media opportunities. Yet the players' union is negotiating as if every player is in the same boat, as if everyone needs these massive salary increases to survive. The reality is that the players who are most vocal about revenue share, the Kia Nurses, the Brianna Stewarts, the Aya Wilsons, they're already making good money between their WNBA contracts, their overseas contracts, their endorsement deals, and their media work. The players who actually need the financial help are the ones who aren't at the negotiating table and aren't doing these interviews. So when she talks about dealing with uncertainty by focusing on what she can control, what she's really demonstrating is that she's already figured out how to thrive in the current system. Which makes you wonder, is this fight really about player welfare? Or is it about principle? Is it about needing more money, or wanting more money because they feel they deserve it regardless of what the business can sustain?
Oh boy. Oh boy. The WNBA, the gift that keeps on giving. At this point, it ain't a gift that's given, it's a pain in my you-know-what at this point. We have WNBA player Kia Nurse, another delusional player, talking about the CBA and what they deserve and what play. Why is Kia Nurse talking? Like, can one of y'all tell me that? Why is Kia Nurse the one talking now? Why is she like nobody man, y'all do know people showed up because of Caitlin Clark, right? Y'all keep talking about all of this and that and this and that. Like, I'm waiting on one of y'all, just one of y'all, to keep it.
Go back and watch that opening rant again. The frustration is palpable, and it's not coming from someone who hates the WNBA or wants to see it fail. It's coming from someone who's watched this entire CBA negotiation play out in public and seen the players completely lose the PR battle through their own actions and statements. Because here's what happened over the past year. Caitlin Clark arrived and brought unprecedented attention to the league. Attendance records shattered. Ratings multiplied. Merchandise sales exploded. The WNBA got more mainstream media coverage in Clark's rookie season than it had received in the previous decade combined. This should have been a pure celebration, a moment where everyone in the league benefited from rising tides lifting all boats. Instead, veteran players spent the season taking shots at Clark and her fanbase. They called fans the dark side. They complained about playing back-to-backs even though that's standard in professional basketball. They framed every criticism as racism or sexism rather than engaging with legitimate concerns about the product. They acted like the attention Clark brought was somehow unfair or unearned, as if she didn't average nearly 20 points and 9 assists while leading a terrible Fever team to the playoffs. And then, right when public sentiment was already turning against the players because of how they'd handled the Clark situation, they decided to dig in on CBA negotiations with demands that seemed completely disconnected from business reality. The timing couldn't have been worse. The messaging couldn't have been more tone-deaf. And now you've got players like Kia Nurse doing interviews where they just repeat the same talking points about revenue share without acknowledging any of the context that's turned fans against them.
Both said. And then after she says that, you got Natasha Cloud coming out and doing what she did. It's just like you guys have not learned your lesson. A lot of this stuff, you can't blame anybody but yourselves for how this thing has played out publicly. You guys have run the Instagram to post stories and all types of stuff. You guys have just butchered the way you've handled this thing. You've pushed a lot of fans away. Y'all was calling fans racist just because they like Caitlin Clark. And that was before all of this stuff. So you guys have brought a lot of this onto yourself. I'm interested to see how this will play out. Get down in.
Rebecca Lobo said it, a WNBA legend, someone with decades of credibility in the women's basketball community, came out and said the players have lost public support due to their own actions. Not because of sexism, not because fans don't appreciate women's sports, because of specific decisions the players and their union made about how to handle this situation. And what happened after Lobo made that very reasonable, very accurate observation? Natasha Cloud went on social media and basically proved Lobo's point by doubling down on the exact behavior that alienated fans in the first place. It's like watching someone step on a rake, get hit in the face, and then immediately step on the same rake again. The lack of self-awareness is staggering. The inability to read the room is almost impressive in its consistency, because at every single inflection point in this saga, the players have had opportunities to take a step back, adjust their messaging, and rebuild some goodwill with the fan base. And at every single one of those moments they've chosen to escalate instead. Here's what makes this entire situation so frustrating for people who actually want to see the WNBA succeed. The players had leverage, real leverage. For the first time in league history, they had mainstream attention, growing ratings, sold-out arenas, and genuine cultural momentum. That's the exact moment when you can push for better conditions and higher pay, because the owners need you to keep that momentum going. But leverage only works if you use it strategically. If you understand your position and negotiate from a place of strength while still acknowledging reality. The players' union did the opposite. They overplayed their hand so dramatically that they turned their strongest negotiating position in league history into a public relations disaster. Think about what the smart play would have been. Accept the owner's offer of $1.3 million max contracts scaling to $2.4 million. Celebrate that as a massive win. It is a massive win compared to where salaries were just 5 years ago. Frame it as progress while acknowledging there's more work to do. Build goodwill with fans by showing appreciation for the growth. Then in the next CBA negotiation cycle, when hopefully the league has continued growing and actually generating sustainable revenue, push for that revenue share model. Instead, they rejected an offer that would have made them some of the highest paid female athletes in the world relative to their league's revenue, called it insulting, demanded revenue share on a league that loses money, and then wondered why public sentiment turned against them. The Caitlin Clark factor makes this even more complicated. Because whether the veteran players want to admit it or not, she is the reason for the growth. Not the only reason. The league has been building toward this moment for years, but she's the catalyst that turned potential into reality. Her college fanbase followed her to the WNBA. Her rivalry with Angel Reese created storylines that casual fans could follow. Her playing style translated to professional basketball in a way that made her must-watch television. And instead of embracing that and riding the wave, veteran players spent the season undermining her, dismissing her impact, and alienating the fans she brought to the league. Chennedy Carter's cheap shot, the dark side comments from multiple players, the constant subtle digs in interviews about how she's just one player and the league was fine before her. All of that created a narrative that WNBA veterans were bitter, jealous, and ungrateful for the attention Clark generated. Now those same players are negotiating a CBA and expecting public support. They're expecting fans to side with them against the owners. But they spent the entire season giving those fans reasons not to support them. They made it personal. They made it tribal. They created an us versus them dynamic, where Clark fans felt attacked for simply enjoying watching their favorite player. So when Kia Nurse sits in that interview and talks about revenue share like it's a foregone conclusion, like it's just the next logical step in the league's progression, she's ignoring all of that context. She's pretending the players are negotiating from a position of strength when they've actually squandered most of their leverage through terrible messaging and worse behavior. The owners know this. That's why they felt comfortable leaking their offer publicly. They knew the numbers would look good to casual observers. Average salaries approaching $600,000 for a league that doesn't generate profit. Max contracts over $2 million. Most people see those numbers and think the players are being greedy. The owners successfully reframed the narrative from players fighting for fair compensation to players demanding money the league doesn't have. And the players walked right into that trap. Because instead of having a coherent response to the owners' leaked numbers, instead of explaining how revenue share would work in a league that operates at a loss, instead of making a compelling case for why they deserve more despite the financial realities, they just kept repeating the same talking points. Revenue share. We deserve it. Look at other leagues. It's not fair, but other leagues generate billions in revenue. The WNBA generates a fraction of that. Other leagues have massive TV deals and sold-out arenas every night. The WNBA just started selling out arenas consistently because of one player. Other leagues have been profitable for decades. The WNBA has never turned a profit. The comparisons don't hold up under scrutiny. What would a smart negotiating strategy look like at this point? First, accept that you've lost the PR battle and stop making it worse. Second, take the best offer on the table and frame it as a win while acknowledging it's not everything you wanted. Third, focus the next year on rebuilding relationships with fans and celebrating the league's growth. Fourth, actually deliver on the court with exciting basketball that justifies the investment. Fifth, come back in 3 or 4 years with concrete revenue growth numbers and make the case for revenue share when the league is actually generating sustainable profit. Instead, the players seem determined to hold out for a deal that might bankrupt the league. They're willing to delay the season, lose momentum from Clark's rookie year, and risk alienating the new fans they just acquired. All for a principle that doesn't match the business reality. Kia Nurse talking about player safety and charter flights and better housing, as if those were hard-fought victories, shows how disconnected this has become. Those weren't victories. Those were gifts from owners who wanted to professionalize the league, even though the financials didn't support it. The players didn't force the owners to provide those things through leverage. The owners volunteered them because they believed in the long-term vision. And now the players are acting like those improvements prove they deserve even more, as if there's an unlimited pot of money and the owners are just being stingy. But the owners have been incredibly generous relative to what the business generates. They've been subsidizing this league for years because they believe in it. And instead of acknowledging that and working collaboratively towards sustainable growth, the players are treating them like adversaries who need to be defeated. This is why fans are frustrated. This is why someone can watch a Kia Nurse interview and come away feeling like she's delusional. Not because she wants fair compensation that's reasonable. Not because she wants the league to grow, Ika Rowan wants that. But because she's talking about revenue share and next steps and continued progression as if the foundation is solid, when in reality the foundation is still being built and it's being funded entirely by owners who lose money every year. The question isn't whether WNBA players deserve to be paid more. In an ideal world, where the league generated massive revenue, absolutely they should be paid more. The question is whether they deserve to be paid more right now, given the current financial reality. or whether they should accept significant but sustainable increases while working to grow the league to a point where revenue share actually makes sense. The players' union has decided they deserve it now, regardless of whether the money exists. The owners have said that path leads to financial catastrophe, and fans are watching this play out, thinking the players sound entitled and disconnected from reality. Whether that's fair or not, that's the perception. And in a negotiation that's being conducted partially in public, perception matters. So where does this go from here? Either the players back down and accept something close to the owner's offer, which would be smart, but would require admitting they overplayed their hand, or they hold out and risk a delayed or shortened season, which would kill the momentum from Clark's rookie year and potentially set the league back years. Or the owners capitulate and give them something close to what they're demanding, which would set a precedent that financial reality doesn't matter and could lead to franchises folding when the losses become unsustainable. None of those outcomes are ideal. The best-case scenario would have been the players accepting the owner's offer 6 months ago, celebrating it,